kitchen. Today we are going to be making this beautiful double chocolate sourdough bread. I am so happy with how this turned out, and I kind of want to walk you guys through this. I will include the recipe from the original creator down below, so you can go check that out, but I want to share what I kind of learned making this to make it super simple for you guys. So first, I started off by feeding my sourdough starter. I just feed it equal parts water, flour by weight, and then I do that at about 8 in the morning, and then by about noon it's doubled, nice and bubbly. It's not completely domed on the top, but it's just starting to kind of fall down, but it's not sunken either. So that's the perfect time to use your sourdough starter. I'm gonna start this recipe off by blooming my cocoa powder, which is just combining it with water and getting that kind of well mixed, put together, really hydrated, and it makes incorporating the cocoa powder aspect a lot easier. And then all of this is done on a little kitchen scale. I'll include a link below if you're interested in one. They're not very expensive. And then you just kind of combine all of your different ingredients. And I've just put this directly in the bowl, weighing it out as I go, and then just slowly started mixing this together. You can do this by hand as I'm doing here, or you could put it on a mixer and with the kneading attachment and use that. Both ways are totally fine. This loaf is very high hydration, so it's going to be very sticky, especially with the added in brown sugar. So if you are having a hard time getting with the bread sticking to your hand, then just use some water, get your hands wet before you start doing anything else. We're gonna let that ferment for a while, or rest really, and then we're gonna start doing our stretch and folds. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of working my way around the bowl, going underneath the bread, pulling it up, and then folding it back onto itself. You can kind of picture this as if it was a square and do like 4 sides of it, or just kind of, I think I probably have done 5 or 6. It doesn't really matter. This is going to really help the integrity of the bread, and so it makes it a lot stronger. And you can kind of see as I do these stretch and folds how my dough goes from being super wet and sticky and practically a soup to this clip right here being very stuck together and very strong and having all those really good bonds. Now, for the chocolate chips edition, I added this after my very last stretch and fold, and it was very difficult to incorporate because my bread was already so strong. I would go back and add it maybe on the second stretch and fold. So incorporating it at that step just so that everything kind of gets mixed up evenly would be a lot easier than what I did, but both can work. You can add them at any point. Then you have a big bulk ferment on the counter, and then before you go to bed, you're gonna wanna put it into a bowl with a towel that has some flour over it. And before that, even, we're going to kind of do a little pre-shaping, and I kind of just like to do this little tri-fold and then rolling it onto itself. This silicone mat I got from Amazon, and I'll link that too. It has been amazing and makes cleanup such a breeze. I've used it for everything and I love it so much. But essentially with this shaping, we're going to kind of try to create a little bit of tension on the top of the bread, which you can do by pulling it towards yourself as I'm doing in this clip. There's a few different methods, but I find that to just be the easiest. Again, if your hands are sticking, either use a little bit more flour at this point or wetting your hands with water. And then once that's shaped, you're going to plop it over into the basket with the flour. It does not need to be this basket. It can be a bowl with a floured kitchen towel on it. It doesn't matter. Then you're going to throw that in the fridge and just wait. And the next morning is when you're going to kind of continue on with the steps after you've had your coffee, of course. Don't forget that very important step. But again, we're going to pull out our trusty silicone mat because this thing's amazing. And honestly, it wasn't necessary, but it does make cleanup easier. So I pulled that out. And then if you want to do this little heart design, I cut up some pieces of parchment paper and I just folded my parchment paper and made little parchment paper hearts. It's not too bad, very elementary craft, but I made a bunch of those. And then I pulled my sourdough out and I flip it over onto this silicone sourdough baking sheet, or little liner that's going to go in my Dutch oven. If you do not have one of these, that is totally fine. You can use parchment paper as well. And so you'll just want to flip that over onto some parchment paper. And then I had floured the night before, and it probably would have been better if I put the little hearts on the bread before I flipped it into the basket, but I just sprayed it with a little water so that the surface was sticky and placed my little hearts around. And then this is actually rice flour, which will give you a much nicer contrast in color. It doesn't brown in the oven like normal flour does. So if you want that really nice, beautiful end result loaf, rice flour is the way to go, but you can also use normal flour to kind of powder the top of it and get a pretty contrast as well. It's not going to be a big deal breaker. And then of course you want to make a big nice score along the sides so that the bread can stretch where you tell it to and not just crack randomly and ruin your design. And for this one, I put 2 slits, one on each side, one main one, and then a little bit of a smaller one on the other side, just so that it wouldn't ruin it. And I preheated my Dutch oven at 450 so that it was nice and hot and ready to go, and then placed my bread in there and then plopped that back in. And then towards the end, you're going to remove your lid, and all that's gonna let is gonna kind of brown the top, get that really nice crunchy top going for you, and finish baking it out. And then once it's done, you do want to remove your bread from the Dutch oven because the Dutch oven holds so much heat for so long. You don't want your bread to continue cooking. So I would transfer it out of the Dutch oven if you can and just let it cool. And then once it's been about cooled for 1 to 2 hours, then you can slice into it and start enjoying. This, I think, would pair really nicely with some peanut butter and sliced bananas, something a little bit sweeter combination like that. Honestly, I probably would have doubled or tripled the amount of chocolate chips I used if I did this loaf again, because I felt like it was just lacking some of those little hints of sweetness. But I was impressed with how beautiful this bread came out, and it did smell amazing and was delicious. I hope you guys give it a try. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on future ones.